Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. Jess and I are here for another video, and we've decided today to do just something a little bit different. We are still going to be talking about oppression, but today we're going to open up just a little bit more so you can see a little bit of how the two of us connect a little bit. And so we'll be opening up Akashic Records today and really kind of getting into those to speak about oppression and what that has looked like for both of us. And so anyway, the first thing we're going to do is ground. Did you want to say anything just before we get started?
No, I'm really excited for this one. This is a big one, so.
Yes, this is a big one. So we're so grateful for all of you that you're willing to be here with us and that you're listening and watching these videos with us. So like I said, we're going to start out with a grounding, and then we're going to open the records, and then the two of us are just going to kind of start talking, and we'll go from there.
Awesome.
So why don't you take it away, Jess?
All right. So if you're listening, go ahead and find a comfortable position. When you're ready to close your eyes, go ahead and do that. And just begin to bring your focus to your breath and breathing in through the nose to fill the belly all the way down to your sit bone. And with your exhale, just make it longer, slower, releasing all of the air from the lungs. Just continue this breath for a moment. And just begin to notice all of your senses. So anything that you can feel on your skin, the temperature of the room, taste in your mouth. Any sensations in the body that want acknowledgement. And you can use your exhales to begin sending a grounding cord that connects your body to the center of the earth. And there's no right or wrong way to do that. Just using your exhale, imagine a grounding cord attached to your body that goes all the way down to the center of the earth. And just setting your intention to receive any messages that Mother Earth would like to share with you today, any insight or intuition from your body that wants to be acknowledged today. And taking another moment to feel that grounding cord, and then using your inhales, you can begin to bring your awareness back up the cord into your body. And taking a moment to breathe in and out of the heart space. And each exhale from the heart space softens the edges of your mind, the edges of your body, any tension that you might be holding, soften the edges. Opening to receive any messages for you today that can benefit your life. When that feels complete for you, take a deep inhale through your nose and just let it fall out your mouth. Opening your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open the records. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. O Holy Spirit of God, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help us to know ourselves in the light of the Akashic records, to see ourselves through the light of the eyes of the Lords of the records, and enable us to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Jess and I have for us. The records are now open.
And so we're just going to set the intention right now for Denise and I to receive any messages that want to come through for anyone that's listening today. Any messages around oppression or anything that wants to be acknowledged today.
Yeah, it's interesting that this has kind of been our topic lately. One of the things that I have purposefully done for today is to invite in my divine feminine. For me, I've noticed that over the years, I've really caged her and put her in a space because it hasn't been safe for her, for me, to bring her out. And really, one of the things that I have noticed has been I have needed to push against oppression my whole life. And that fighting and pushing against oppression has not allowed me to flow. I've needed to fight. So my masculine has been out so much more than my feminine. And so I have been really trying to call on her lately to open up and be present. And it's a difficult thing to do, to allow flow and nurturing and motherly love, divine love, to show up. But for me, that's one of the things that I have noticed as far as oppression is trying to change from that space of fighting to allowing.
And what's coming through around that for me is this shift in consciousness that's happening for so many people right now that doesn't have to do with gender, of like I am man or woman, masculine, feminine in that way, but that we're all moving into a more divine feminine way of being. And it's almost not even our choice. It's just given what's here, we're all being asked to surrender and not try and control, which is more masculine. And so it doesn't even have to do with gender. It's more an energy that we're all being asked to bring, and more of that feminine to heal right now.
Yes, that feeling, that healing, that I don't think we have done, because we've all been in fight or flight mode for so long, and we have all lived in a space of fear for so many years. And so having to put on that warrior armor so that we can show up in a world that is so fear-based. And now we really need to step back and be nurturing for ourselves mostly, and that nurturing will then show up for others as well.
Yeah, and even coming back to oppression being like the key topic, I guess, the question that's coming through is how have we oppressed ourselves? Because when I think of oppression, I think of being a victim of something outside, right? We could think of, oh, this virus is oppressing us, or this other thing outside of us is oppressing us, but really how have we been oppressing ourselves? And, looking at our stories, our personal stories, if there's anything that you and I would like to share around this, we could. And just so you guys know, we did not plan this, so we're just flowing. But yeah. So how we trust ourselves. Yeah.
Well, and for me, I don't know about for you, but for me, I don't know that there was ever anything that was overtly, you're not okay, but it was my own internal sense of I'm not okay because I am experiencing things that nobody else around me experienced. Um, I've I've shared with you, and I'll share it here. I've seen entities my whole life that are there that not everybody else can see, and they kind of come and go depending on what I have going on for me. And because of that, I have felt not okay. And so I have put myself right in a cage because it felt unsafe. It felt scary because I was taught that that's not, that doesn't happen for people, right? That's not, that doesn't really happen. And so you shouldn't be experiencing these things. And so as a young child, I put myself in this space of it's not okay. Don't speak the words. Don't share with others. Don't don't be yourself, because
Yeah.
if you are, you won't have approval and you won't be loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I similarly to what you just spoke, I also have felt that way with having some highly sensitive characteristics. But what happens is we start to compartmentalize those things. Compartmentalize meaning, it's a defense mechanism of walling it off, to the point of we even can convince ourselves that it's not real sometimes, that that's not our reality. Right.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And then we create a new reality, and that
Yeah.
reality is almost more oppressive than the one that we were living in before.
Say more about that. I feel like there's lots of juice there.
Yeah. So because it feels too free and too big, we
Mhm.
create this sense of I'm not okay, I'm not good. Um, this isn't allowed on whatever level. And so I shut everything down and I try to live in a way that I think everybody else wants me to live, which is what I was taught, which was very oppressive and very rigid and very, stay in a box and do the things in the box. And so I put myself in that box instead of holding my ground and saying, no, I'm bigger than this box that has been created for me by others that I have just kind of stepped into and put the lid on and said, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would imagine a lot of people that are, listening to this and resonating with feeling oppression, have experienced different maybe structures in their life where that has been true for them too, whether it was family structure or maybe religion as well, or and to understand that we're not wanting to continue the victim story of oppression. We're wanting to bring forward this divine, feminine, empowered, new vision of oppression, of being able to look from, like you were saying earlier, an external view of our inner child that's still very present and might still feel oppressed right now.
Yes.
And how to help our inner child that might still feel oppressed right now to see more clearly that they're already free and they're already, expansive. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And speaking to her, I feel like today part of what we need to do is, um, well, I don't know about you, but for me, part of what I need to do is speak to her, right? And remind her that it's okay, right? That young little girl that I was that didn't think I was okay, um, you're good, right? You're okay. You're good. You're loved no matter how you show up in the world and no matter what you experience that others don't or do. Um, and I think part of this, like, how do we move from oppression, is getting to that space where we're willing to take a look at those pieces that we have thought were unlovable
Mm.
in oppression and remind ourselves that at every stage in our lives, we were divine. We have been, we were good enough and we are good enough. And just to speak those words to that young person, and say, it's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay.
And to be able to hold that parent space now for our inner child, so that instead of living from them still. And that is that step. I feel like this is the consciousness that I feel like as humanity we're all being invited into right now, is to embody the parent instead of the wounded victim child that felt oppressed. We are now the parent that can set that child free to play and be free again. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
What an interesting paradox that we live in right now. It's like, it's this whole illusion of that we're all trapped, but that's exactly the opposite of what's happening. I just find that really fascinating, like, good call, universe, well played.
Yes, yes. Speak a little more to that, Jess, because I think there are more people feeling that right now.
Yeah, it's like, I guess the words that come through right now is this cosmic game that we're playing, that if we can start to understand that this is so divinely orchestrated for healing, and if we can step into that space of seeing that it's going to change everything. It's going to change the whole outlook of what's happening right now is going to change for humanity. Yeah, it's a huge awakening right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't know about you, but for me, in some of the therapeutic practices that I have had in the past, there's this whole piece that we do around reparenting, right? How do you show up and reparent yourself? And it feels like for me now, and I don't know about for you, but there's this spiritual reparenting that's happening now. And again, on that kind of cosmic level across the universe, that's what we're being asked to do, is to reparent ourselves from that spiritual perspective.
Yeah. And I don't know why, because the records are still open, so maybe you can help me understand this, but the Mother Earth keeps showing up big time as part of this. Like, it's almost like she's our parent right now, and she's trying to show us some big stuff around how to be nurtured, how to step into our divine feminine. She is the divine feminine, she is. So she's like, hey, just do what I do, receive, trust, slow down, allow something bigger than you to hold you, allow me to hold you.
Yes. Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you, like, when you feel into that a little bit, there's so much wisdom in that, and so much aid. She's been doing this for millions of years, right?
Yeah.
And the beauty that is there when we ground into her and allow that receiving of that divine feminine through her, and the wisdom that comes from that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and it almost feels like I tend to feel that the earth has her own consciousness, her own vibration, and she's going through this up leveling with us, and her vibration is changing. And so if we better get on her team pretty fast, because we're kind of dependent on her, and she is evolving and she's changing it as her own consciousness. So as her children, that's the invitation, is to the spiritual journey that you're talking about. We're being asked to up level our understanding of what it means to be spiritual beings in a human body.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, something around our stories keeps coming up too, of that the first step in this healing journey is to own the truth of our stories, not to stay there, but to overcome this fear of judgment from our fellow humans, our fellow brothers and sisters. This fear of being judged is huge right now.
It is. And do you feel like part of that fear of judgment keeps us from stepping into our sovereign space as well? Like, it keeps us connected in really unhealthy ways. It feels like almost this chain at our waist that's tied to others because of the fear. And part of divine spirituality and stepping into our sovereign space is to really cut that chain, undo it, pull the key out, take the lock off, and let it go, and really step into being okay with me being in this space. Whoever wants to show up is great, and whoever doesn't want to, that's okay too.
Yeah, yeah, yes. Because the fear is the chain. Fear is that chain. But the interesting thing about that is before Denise and I got on this call, we both were like, I feel scared, And so fear is part of excitement too, and moving in a direction we need to go. So it's not about not ever feeling afraid. I think it's just a matter of not allowing the fear to be what determines what we do anymore. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And isn't it almost like that fear is what has created the oppression? Not that anybody meant to set up an oppressive state. Like nobody comes into this life saying, ooh, I'm going to create a state that's really oppressive for everybody around me. But it's that reaction to fear and living in that fear that really creates that oppressive state. And we do it for ourselves, and we do it for those around us. I think of even when parenting my kids, right, as they were growing up, I had so much fear around me that I put that fear into them. That's how I parented, right? I'm worried about how they're going to grow up, and what they're going to look like and act like and be like, and because that's a reflection of me and my own fear, instead of allowing them to be the divine human that they stepped into this life to be.
Right.
So just all of the different ways that fear shows up, that we create oppressive states for ourselves. We step into oppressive states that others create for us. And then we also create oppressive states for others.
Ooh.
How good or, how good intending we meant to be, we still create that for others.
That's huge. I love that you just said that. And because you're right, it's not that anybody thinks they're doing it. Very few people actually think that that's what they're doing, is oppressing someone. But I think you're right on when I feel like there's a key component between, if we judge ourselves on any level, that automatically gets mirrored onto those that are close to us, and that without even realizing it, we project some judgment, which is oppression, to our loved ones. So we have to clean up our own judgment around our not judging ourselves first in order to not oppress others.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so big.
Yeah. It is.
I have to kind of sit with that one for a minute, because wow.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, in fact, maybe we could fill into that for a moment.
Do you feel like this is kind of where love of self starts having to show up, right? And that reparenting that we were talking about earlier, like I have to parent myself from a space of light and love, so that then I can show up from a space of light and love for others that doesn't create that oppressive state. But tapping into self-love, I don't know about for you, but for me, it is one of the hardest things for me to do.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know that a lot of people know how to get there. I don't think there's actually a step-by-step process around that. I think I almost see self-love as being the cherry, the cherry on top. Yeah, it's like the outcome of doing a lot of shadow work. It's not something that's like, oh, I can do these 5 steps and then I'll love myself. It's actually like, no, that's just like the icing on the cake that happens to come with going through a lot of shadow work. And that doesn't feel very loving when you go through it. It feels really awful sometimes.
Yes. And as you're talking, one of the things that comes up for me is, like, as a society, we're taught, do these 5 steps, right? That very masculine, here's how you show up in the world, very masculine. When in reality, if we're looking for self-love, we have to invite the feminine in. right? We have to invite that space for ourselves, because that's where you find self-love. It's not in the doing of the steps. It's in the being and allowing flow and allowing fluidity in our lives and not being so rigid.
Ooh, I love that. Yep. Which it is super interesting again that this is the time that we're in, that we are all forced to really sit with and be more in the feminine. We're just being forced to be in the feminine. And so, if instead of seeing it as we're forced to sit, we're forced to not do, we're forced to not go to work, maybe if we can start to shift our the story that we're telling around what's happening to being, I get to invite my feminine to come on board right now. I get to. And that can really be transformational for people right now.
Yes, yes. And so here's one of the things that keeps coming up is I've talked to so many people and experiencing this myself, right, around food. So much scarcity around food right now, and lots of people heading to the pantry to eat their feelings and eat this uncomfortable feeling. And it seems to me like what's really happening is it's our feminine wanting to show up, and we don't know how to give her space. And we're trying to contain her through food, right? Through comfort, and saying, okay, it's okay. I'm just going to feed you because I know that you're there. And this is what's comfortable for me, is I can give you space if I feed you. When really what she's asking for is she doesn't need food. She needs the I love yous. She needs the what do you want today? How do I invite my divine feminine in today? I don't know.
Yeah, that feels really true to me as well. And I kept hearing, as you were speaking, I kept hearing soul food. She wants soul food. She doesn't want actual food. But we don't know how, we're like, oh, I think she wants food, but really it's like soul food, which is rest and walks and yeah.
And grounding into Mother Earth and going and touching the trees, because that has so much energy and life and love in it.
Yeah. And then, we live in Idaho, so luckily we have a lot of access to nature, but people that don't have that right now, that are quarantined, it's always available to sit and set an intention to create a connection with Earth. Even if you live in a high rise in New York, you can still set the intention to connect to Mother Earth and receive any messages from her that want to come through. And I just feel like a lot of people think it has to be literal Earth in order for them to connect to it. And I don't think it does.
No, I don't think so either. Because do you feel like sometimes it's the breath almost? So it's the breath, because air is connected to Mother Earth, right? That's that bridge between the grounding of the earth and the heavens. And it's that breath that invites her into our space.
Totally. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So is there anything, I'm just going to put this out there, is there anything that either of us or both of us want to share around our personal story of oppression that feels like it would be helpful for anyone today that would be listening? Maybe we could take a minute to feel into that and just see. What's coming up for me right now is this old image of this little me. She's probably like 6 or 7. And she's being so careful with her world. So I see her like tiptoeing around and being really careful with everything and how she does things and what she says. And, just in this moment, I I'm giving her permission, radical permission to be messy. I'm giving her radical permission to run around naked and to be loud and not perfect. And I'm getting goosebumps. And she likes that. She's excited to do that.
Mm. I love that radical permission to be messy.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, what's coming up is I have this picture in my head of me young as well, probably 4 or 5. And she feels almost feral, right? Like this feral child left in the woods to just be covered in dirt, covered in mud, ratted hair, hiding. Afraid to show herself. Mm. And so I also am giving her permission to come out of the woods, to show up, to be her beautiful, messy self, because I see her blue eyes underneath all of that mess. I see that wild red hair. And I honor what she's been through, because there's been a lot. And now I have emotion. Whew.
Yay.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I invite her in to be her messy, wild, yelling, screaming self, you know, her feral self. Show up and be present, right? Because that's part of who I am. And that's part of what I pushed to the side when I needed to step into this box of oppression for myself. So.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that she wants to say?
Well, she wants to cuss. No. She wants to say a big fuck you to me, but so there you go.
Wait, she's like, why did you put me out here?
She's like, I did not deserve that, bitch. And here I am, and I'm not going away.
Yep. Awesome.
So yeah.
Love that. Yeah. You know, I actually kind of want to point to this too of anger is just a step in the right direction. Like, and I'm speaking to whoever's listening, but like permission to be messy means permission to be mad and permission to feel anger. And both men and women have have a lot of judgment around letting themselves feel angry, but it's sure better than what happens when we don't. And a lot of times that gets pushed inward, and the anger starts to be judgment on ourselves. And so, yeah, permission to let your inner child be angry, because then it's moving her in a direction of free, at least.
Yes.
So,
yes, exactly. Which is, you know, I've been this buttoned up person for so long, and anger was never an okay, you know, emotion. Frustration was never an okay emotion. So to allow her to show up and just say all the words and feel all the feels, that's an edge for me, right? And I'm sure an edge for many people that are listening.
Yep.
So I invite you, whoever is listening, to reach for your edges when it comes to anger and resentment and all of those messy feelings. Really reach for them. And if you're anything like me, you are, and it doesn't come easily. You have to really open up and allow space for it, and be okay with not feeling perfect, and be okay with not feeling lovable because you are loved in that moment, and it's okay. And just allow whatever's going to show up to show up.
Mm. Yeah. And whatever does show up, remembering that we are now embodying the parent. So letting your inner child have the emotion, and also helping your inner child to not project it, but to own it as part of the empowering process. If that makes sense. Because a lot of times what happens is our inner child will be like angry, and then they project it onto the closest, person, like a partner or whatever. And really it's about, oh, I feel angry and I'm feeling this very powerful emotion, and how awesome that I can own that, because I'm big enough to hold it. So I feel like that's part of reparenting, is owning all of our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Like the thing that keeps coming up for me is the idea of putting on my big girl pants and owning all of the emotions, right? I'm just going to suit up in my big girl pants and put all of the emotions and know that they're all available now, right? And I get to own them instead of them being about other people. I'm not angry at you. I'm feeling anger.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Should we do another check-in and with the records and see if there's anything else?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Awesome.
So I don't know what this is about, but I keep seeing steps. And I'm wondering if part of this idea of oppression is that there's an ascension to it, right? We're ascending out of this oppressive state that we've created for ourselves, that others have helped to create for us. And it's a process, and part of what we need to do, part of the process is just taking the next step. And each time you take a next step, it brings you higher up that ladder through the ascension of and out of oppression.
One moment at a time.
Yes.
One step at a time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So my guides show me things through images as well. And like when you were talking about steps, all I could see was like the steps out of the tomb. And I know today is Easter, and I think they're giving me lots of messages around Easter, not from a religious perspective, but a symbolic perspective of we are all stepping out of the tomb that we've been in, and we're rising. It's just the same concept of coming up the stairs. It's also, we're all rising together, and we're coming out of oppression. We're coming out of the tomb. And today is super symbolic for that. It doesn't have to be religious, but it is really symbolic.
Mm-hmm. Like as a collective, part of what's been happening is we've been going through a collective dying of how we all were. Yeah. And we are reawakening now to this new way and taking new steps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm getting this message of something around that the masculine now are potentially going to start to have more questions around what masculinity means, because the patriarchy is dying in the way that we knew masculinity is dying. And so I'm getting some kind of a message around that men in particular are going to wonder, they're going to start really asking the questions around what does divine masculine mean? And now.
Mm.
How does that fit into this new phase that we're all coming into?
Mhm. So the thing that keeps coming up for me around that is there's still space for the masculine, right? It's not that the masculine is dying, but it's stepping to the side and making room for the feminine as well. So that it's kind of like that picture of two people walking together holding hands side by side.
Mm.
And we have to embrace both our masculine and feminine in that relationship, and we need to allow both to walk side by side.
Mm. Mhm.
And almost, let me know how this resonates for you, but almost there's going to be a shift, and there is a shifting happening right now. We've been watching it over um, lots of years, but it's going to become more prominent around how women are showing up in the world as leaders.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a little bit of a different way of being, and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, the words that I heard were that we will actually be equals now. Like there's that it's going to feel like we're taking up too much space, but it's only because we've been used to being in such a small space that when we actually take up equal space, that it's going to feel really uncomfortable for some of us to hold that bigger space. It's actually equal, but feels like a lot.
Mm-hmm. That we're being asked not to be timid anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think men want this. I think it's been a long time that maybe we think they've been oppressing us, but they have. It's not. Some maybe have, but the majority haven't. They've just been waiting for us to take our seat as the queens. You know, like it's up to us to take our space. It's not up to them. We need to just step up and take it.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I have goosebumps all over.
Yeah.
Yes, it feels so right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not taking up our space in a masculine way, it's taking up our space in that allowing that flow and that energy, and that fluid self that is really present and powerful and potent, to show up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kidding. It's complete on my end.
Yeah, I am as well.
Okay.
So should we go ahead and close the records?
Sure.
Okay, the records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today, and let us know what you think about this and what resonates for you.
Yes. Thank you.